Well, welcome everyone. I see some of our archery marshals, our Atlanta archery marshals, and I know we have at least one parent and hopefully a few more. This is a class that will go, oh, I think I have it listed here. Hang on. There. Advanced. There we go. Oh, I have my street creds up. You know, I put these after I went to a university once, and this guy was teaching the history of the Battle of Crecy, and he talked about some things that I hadn't heard before. And in my head, I'm going, "Who the heck is this guy? Where is he from? Where is he coming out with all this stuff? I've never heard of this before." And then later, I found out like he was some PhD professor, and that was his thesis, and his work was like all over the place. But anyway, so I put up my street cred, so you guys know I'm legit. And the class, as I was saying, covers some starter equipment for folks just getting started in archery with their kids, or if you've not worked with kids a lot on the range, some things to consider. So starter equipment, safety, some basic techniques to get you started shooting, some troubleshooting, no pun intended, and range etiquette. There we go. I'm trying to minimize that. So, okay, go away. Starter equipment. We're going to look at a couple different vendors, although for most of this, you're going to be able to find it in so many different places. If you just Google starter bows for kids, there's going to be a bunch of different vendors that come up. And a lot of it is the same stuff, just sold by different people. And, some inexpensive fiberglass bows, shooting gloves, bracers, arrows, quivers, clothing that doesn't catch. I'm not going to go into that separately, but that's kind of important. Especially when you're starting out with archery, you're a little kid and you're trying to remember all these things and your sleeve keeps catching up. You want the kids to have a positive experience, not a frustrating one. And then just some things on targets. So we allow the youth a little bit of leeway when it comes to gear, archery gear for the SCA. So some more modern type bows and arrows and equipment. Some that are rather popular is like the youth bow you see on the right. That whole kit is like under $30. It's for a 5, 6, 7-year-old. It's good. I think it's like draws 10 pounds. And it's got little quivers and finger tabs, a couple of arrows. And that's available, again, a number of different places. Let me see if this link is going to work. Oh, it does kind of. Okay, yeah. So this is youth bows. This is Three Rivers Archery. Of course, there's a number of other good archery companies out there where you can find some fun stuff for your kids. Yeah, see, well, that's a little bit more expensive. But you can find those same starter kits. I think they're just using that picture for like under $30. Anyway, the fiberglass bows are good to use. Like the Titan is another Titan recurve for youth. I would go anywhere from 10 pounds up to 25 pounds for youth, depending on their size and their strength. And I would start them with a recurve, unless you just want to do longbow. Recurves are a little bit easier to learn when you're starting out. Longbow is a little bit more difficult. I would keep them absolutely 100% away from crossbows. They're just flat out too dangerous. Let's see. Oh, on this particular bow on the right, there's these little clips. And on the youth bows that just like 10, 15 pounds, I wouldn't you can't use these types of string because if you pull more than that, or if you're a bigger kid and you pull that little bow, those things are gonna slip and come undone. But they're okay for the small kids shooting those bows. Another one is this one here is a takedown bow. And those are often a little bit less expensive. You can, as your child grows, gains strength, get some height on him, you can switch out the limbs and it'll be you'll be pulling a greater poundage as the child grows. And of course, shooting gloves, bracers, arm guards, arrows, quivers, all that good stuff. Bear archery is another one. Lancaster archery, and just type in, youth archery, and you'll get a whole bunch of different options. So hand protection. A lot of the starter kits will come with these finger tabs. I don't particularly like them, especially with kids, for the same reason that clothing gets in the way. You don't want one other thing they're trying to maneuver and just having trouble with it. I like these over here. I shoot with those. They're a little bit more expensive, but not that expensive. The ones all over here on the lower right, those your fingers slip right in, and their size different. I've seen frequently where the kids' fingers fall out of these because of the length of that section right there. But you can try them out. Some people love these. I don't. And again, I wouldn't start kids off on that. So, it comes with the tabs. You can try it, see how they do, or you can spend, $5 more or whatever and get some fingered gloves. And this is like a half glove, a glove for your shooting hand, typically if you're shooting a long bow and resting the arrow on your hand. And that's to protect your hand. So the edging of the fletching doesn't dig into your hand. And bracers or arm guards, just a couple different varieties. You can pick these up pretty inexpensively as well from a multitude of places. A lot of the vendors at the larger SCA events will have like this type. If you can get it without this nice decoration, because I've seen where the string will catch on the edge, that little decoration is sticking out too much.
Mistress Lorelei,
Yes.
Lord Mungo and Lady Sarah have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Please. One of the things that we found to be very useful with little kids and bows.
Can you speak up a little bit, Sally?
Okay. One of the things we found to be really useful with little kids and bows is using no glove on the string.
Yes.
Because we've been unable to really find gloves that are small enough to fit those tiny little hands.
Yes, and I failed to put that in this, but yeah, no gloves. They go directly on the string, and it's just little plastic things that the kids can put their fingers on. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. The bracer on the left is my bracer. It's a little bit fancier. If your kids are going to stay in it, they might want to get something fun. And make sure all this stuff goes to the outside. Every once in a while, I'll get someone who brings a kid to the range, and all this stuff is on the inside because they're thinking like a heavy fighter, not an archer. So the smooth side goes to the inside of your arm. Any other questions? Okay. And my issue with when I do a class, it's typically going too fast. So I will attempt to not breeze through this in 20 minutes. Okay, arrows. A lot of the kits will come with a couple of different arrows, and those are fun to play with and practice with. They do sell some aluminum and fiberglass arrows that are fun for, again, practice. If you're gonna compete or your kids want to compete in the SCA, then I suggest getting the wooden arrows. And you can find them again at Three Rivers Archery and some of the other ones. They're not horribly expensive, but make sure you talk to your kids about, we always say don't get attached to your ammunition because they are going to get lost. And it's just part of it. So, and pay particular attention to the length of the arrow, especially as your kids grow. The arrow might be the perfect length for them when they start out. And next year you bring them back to the range at Pennsic or War of the Wings or wherever, and they've grown 6 inches, and that's not uncommon. And they've outgrown their arrows, and then you're stuck without any arrows. You don't want them to overdraw the arrow because then the point hits the limb of the bow, and it can shatter, and that can end up in some injuries. And your marshal should be the marshal who does your bow inspection should be checking for that. But still, you want to be prepared, and you don't want your kid to be disappointed. Fletching, feathers, paper, leather are all okay. Plastic vanes come with a lot of the starter arrows. Again, that's fine for practice and shooting. But again, if you want to compete, you need the wooden arrows and the natural fletching. Points are basic field points. These can come by the dozen or by the 100. And don't put on weird fancy points that are going to tear up the target, like bodkins or the broadheads or anything. Just these simple ones. And the plastic nocks are perfectly fine. I happen to like these in the upper right-hand corner, especially for kids because they grip the string and they stay on the string. And they also have this little nub, and that is where the cock feather sits, and I'll talk about that in a second. And if you want to make your own arrows, more power to you. It takes a little bit of extra equipment, but it saves you money in the long run. And again, you can get bulk shafts from a number of different sources. So quivers, ground quivers, that's the one in the center, and that's just a metal ring you stick in the ground and put your arrows in it, and you're set. You don't have to worry about it. The back quiver toward the left and a hip quiver on the right. These are all very common in the SCA. And if you get stuck, go find yourself a packing tube, cardboard tube, and decorate it. The kids had not a classic youth activity where they decorated their own quivers once years ago, and it was pretty fun. Or you can make a cloth bag too. None of this stuff has to be horribly expensive unless you just want to spend the big bucks on the fancy stuff. But enjoy yourself. Don't go broke, because you know how kids are. Next year they might be into something entirely different. But archery is a fantastic way for you to participate with your kids in the SCA. It's something that the whole family can do together in the SCA. And there's not a lot of activities, not all activities can you do that. So targets that are appropriate for kids, well, whatever they can hit. Basically, if you don't want them to get too frustrated, I recommend everybody, if you're running a range or you're in the backyard or wherever, have something big that they can hear it go the whack that first time it hits, and then they're hooked from there on in. And something fun. Kids absolutely love to shoot at stuffed animals. At first I'm like, oh my God, they're gonna get upset. No, they're not gonna get upset. The little bloodthirsty urchins, they're gonna love it. And if you see anybody with melted faces, these are just people that I'm not sure I have permission with their pictures. I melted their faces. But putting something out like the stuffed animals on the ground is actually going to help the kids improve their aim. They're going to hone in on that smaller object, and instead of just hitting a large backboard like this one over here. So make it fun and make it possible for them. So you want to have at least, if you're running a range, at least one moderately sized target out there. Oops, got it. Okay. Safety. I'm hearing it echoes. Somebody, are you guys hearing that?
Yeah, I'm hearing an echo too as well.
Just
Somebody probably has their mic open.
okay. Everybody put yourselves on mute. So safety. Work with your kids on the range command, on range commands. If you're running a range that's specifically for kids, you can practice it all together. If you're running a range where it's mixed kids and adults, then you can take them aside, unless you're running the line, of course, and go over the range commands, go over it so their parents understand the range commands as well. Is the range clear? The range is clear. And then, of course, who can say hold? Everybody can say hold. And make sure the kids understand that, because a lot of times they're afraid to be the one to stop all of the action when there's a bunch of adults there. Have them practice saying the word hold. Have them belt it out so everybody can hear, so they know they can use their big voice to say hold if they need to. And we had that happen. Some little kid, probably no bigger than the one there in the picture, belted out hold like a trooper, because he saw a beagle on the side of the range. Nobody else had seen it yet. It was a beagle coming out of the woods. So, he belted that out. And yeah, so that was cool. But of course, never bend over in front of the line to pick up an arrow. That's something kids do frequently, partially because their arrows slip off of the bow, either because of equipment or technique. And that's all beginner stuff, and that's perfectly okay. But make sure they understand if that arrow falls before the line, then it has to stay there. And make sure your arrows are always pointed downrange. You'd think that this would be a no-brainer, but that's not always the case, especially when kids knock their arrow. They often turn to the side. And going over these verbally with the kids ahead of time saves a lot of trouble down the way, a lot of time down the way. So no running on the range. Feel like a teacher, no running, running in the hallways. But if a kid is running and they fall on an arrow and it jabs them in the eye, that sucks. So kids are excited. They just shot all their arrows downrange. Some of them are in the target. They want to get down there. They want to score their points. They want to see what they did. But this is definitely a no running zone. And no hiding behind the target. I never would have considered this one. War of the Wings 2006, I don't know, somewhere around there. And it was on a kids range, and we went over all the commands, and we went over hold and how to do this and how to do that. And everybody got their stuff and came back, and it would say, is the range clear? The range is clear. Archers, And then one lady goes, where's my kid? And I'm like, and a little kid sticks his head out from behind the archery netting and waves. He was hiding. He was hiding back there. He thought it was funny. So, you'd think that would be something you wouldn't have to talk to your kids about, but say it. No hiding behind the targets. And of course, straddling the line. Most kids do not know what straddle means. So, show them and have them practice it. And then, of course, a parent or legal guardian has to be with the kids the entire time they're on the archery range. In the past, that didn't used to be the case, and the archery range started to be like the babysitting area for all the kids, and we couldn't find the parents. But anyway, I'm glad they passed that rule, and I'm not that kid's parent, but his parent is there, and I was working with him. I wasn't, running the line or doing anything else. So I'm there one-on-one with that kid, who is a really good, who's like, I don't know, probably in his 20s now. He's a really good shot. Any questions so far?
Yeah, Mistress Lorelei, I would just like to add on to the parent legal guardian. Just be mindful when you're running the line, even though the parent is there, if they're shooting themselves, right, and their kids there, they sometimes get too focused on their own shooting and they lose sight of their child struggling with the arrows. That's happened before, so I've had to pull both the parent and the child off and talk with the parent and let him know that, while your child is shooting and he's obviously having some challenges, you need to please focus on him.
Absolutely right. And thank you for adding that. Yeah, the parents need to be with your kid, do the thing with your kid, and then have them sit down and you do your shooting. And then everybody's happy.
And Mungo and Sarah have another question.
Okay.
Not a comment really, but the last time we were at War of the Wings, there were no children on the archery range for the whole time that I saw, and we were there for the event, except a couple of teenagers. And the reason is because they had set up a daycare kindergarten over by the castle, and all the parents were dumping their kids there where they were under authorized supervision. And that's something we have to somehow address, or we're not going to have children coming to the range, especially at that event.
Well, I imagine they had some really fun things for them to do there. But yeah, if at a big event like that, you set up a separate kids range and advertise it well, and then get some competent marshals to help out specifically with that. That goes a long way for bringing the kids to the range.
Yeah.
And I think safety with when you're pulling arrows is important too, because you have to make sure you know who's, I don't know, in our archery club, you're supposed to put your bow, I think, up against the target while you're hunting arrows, so there's somebody out there.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, you don't, and it's something we tell the kids, and I could definitely stick that into this presentation, and maybe I will after we're done. Say if you want to back up, you don't want to stand right in front of the target when everybody's pulling out. You get a knock in the eye. So that is absolutely a valid point. In the SCA, we leave our bows downrange, behind the line before we go out and get arrows. And that's why we have the range commands to call the range clear, to make sure there's nobody still out there. So,
Mistress Lorelei, Master
yes.
Ivar has a comment/question.
Yes, Ivar.
Okay. I know a couple of times that myself and Ron had worked with the local Ren Fair down here, that they had a very small archery range set up for the public. And when we had little kids come up, we had their parents come up with them. But anytime we had to put hands on the child to say, okay, this is how you do it, we would ask permission of the parent that was standing right next to us first. You just don't assume that you can touch the kid. That's not good. That's all I have to say.
Absolutely.
Especially when you're working one-on-one.
Absolutely. So I want to talk for a second about starting out, teaching kids the right way from the start. What side of the bow does the arrow go on? I mean, something like a recurve like mine here, it's obvious where the arrow has to go, but not all bows are like that. Some have a little shelf on either side, the starter bows, so you can be used by a lefty or a right-handed person. I always, whether it's a child or an adult shooting archery for the first time, use the tabling the bow phrase. And I say, pretend there's a table in front of you, and you're going to put your bow on the table, and you lay it on the table. And now you're going to take your arrow and place it on top. This way they always know where the arrow has to go, and then they can turn their arm upright. And I say that once or twice, next time they're like, where did the arrow go? And I'm like, table the bow, put the bow on the table. And they know exactly what I mean. And they know just to get it right first time. And I forgot what else I was going to say, but anyway.
I was wanting to say, most of my experience with kids and shooting has been with scouting, with Girl Scouts. And, they might not know what the cock feather is if you don't have the kind with the stripes, I guess. So I always tell them that, you go to camp, you use the buddy system, and the feather that doesn't have a matching feather has to be your buddy and stay close to you. And I guess whatever equivalent, I don't know if that helped, but I think it did.
Yeah. If you have, I have 3 different colored feathers in here. So
okay. Well then,
however, that's just my.
Yeah, that we had different stuff. Okay,
but
sorry.
Let me roll back to here. Oops, not that far. One of the reasons I like these nocks is because they have this little nub, and that little nub lines up with the cock feather, and you can feel that little nub, you can see that little nub, and that's one of the ways you can make sure you get the right feather up. Of course, you have one feather sticking out, and these other 2 are lying flat, because they're going to go flat across the bow. And if it was upside down, as it would go, that cock feather would divert the arrow a little bit. And you'll notice the first time you shoot it the wrong way that, whoops, what was that? So, and then I encourage, especially with the kids, using a knock point. Have something like these little brass knocks on the string, or a little thread tied on the string, so they know where their arrow goes every time, and then consistently knock under or knock over, however your bow is set up, whatever your preference is, but do that for consistency. So once they've got the arrow on the bow, of course, they're going to start to tip it up. They're going to grab that string and arrow, and encourage them to keep loose fingers. I shoot 1 finger above, 2 finger below. Some people only do 2, some people go 3 under, but I think for beginners, you just do the 1 above, 2 below is going to be the easiest thing. And one of the things we see frequently is what you see on the right, and that is when they grip it, they think they have to hold on so hard, and gripping that arrow and string rolls the string, and it forces the arrow off the shelf. And you can see I just squeezed it a little bit, and that arrow is starting to roll off the shelf right there. Some people kind of roll the string even without gripping it, and this is so common, very frequent, that arrow is just sliding off the shelf. And you can point that out, and I go, look, kids, I don't stick their thumb up in the air, get that thumb out of there, and that usually does the trick. But they don't have to do a death grip on the string, especially when you have those nocks that fit well onto the string. Some of the strings, the youth bows are a little thinner, and you can have someone wrap some serving around that, makes it a little thicker, and the nocks will stay on better. So your stance, stick that chest out, put those shoulders back. The young man on the right, he's got beautiful form. Look how nice and straight that is. He's sticking his chest out. And on the right, that's me in the goofy hat. I was demonstrating to someone how not to do it. And that woman I was showing how to shoot, she's now like this really awesome mounted archer. She does horse archery and really well. So yay on her. But so I was showing her what she was doing and how she wasn't getting power out of that and how just a better way to do it anyway. So this is another common thing you'll see with kids and new archers. It's not a bad thing. It's just, it's just their form and you got to learn proper form. So stick that chest out and get those shoulders back. This is a nice example of the exact same thing on the left. This was a kid. I think I melted his face a little too. I think that kid's got kids now, actually. So he's kind of got that elbow out. He's not shooting very close to his body. He's kind of looking off, not down the arrow. But there we go. But that's a good example of that with the newbie. And again, very common. You just gotta, this chick, she looks like she thinks she knows what she's doing anyway. So shoulders back, stick that chest out, nice, clean release. And there's different releases, especially if you listen to Master Column. Is he here in the audience? There's a static release, which I do, and one where you kind of pull back, but it doesn't matter. These are kids. They're brand new at this. Just have a nice, clean release. Pop those fingers open. And when they get to be a good archer and they'll develop their own style and their own shooting preference, and that's totally okay. But for starters.
Is it just, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Is it just me, or should I be concerned about what the child on the left is wearing, that it's too likely to catch on something?
That's absolutely why I put this picture in, because
but the stance is good. Yes.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of clothing that gets in the way. This kid had such a hard time, and it was dad's tunic that he threw over because he didn't have anything. I think we ended up like pulling it up in the back and tying it so he wouldn't have such a hard time. But yes, absolutely. Poofy sleeves. My sleeves on the left here. Poofy. Absolutely get in the way, but I rolled it all up and tied it and tucked it in so it would be okay to shoot. So troubleshooting. All right, we talked about a little of this. So arrows falling off the shelf. Don't grip so hard. Stick your thumb up in the air, and that's, that comes from rolling the string and the arrows just kind of slipping off. Arrows landing to the left or right. And again, this is more common in women than men. It's been my experience. Swing your right hip, if you're right-handed, shooting right-handed, swing that right hip back. And that brings everything over more in line. And your stance is a lot straighter. This is something that I continue to do. It's like, point, aim, roll my hip back, and it also straightens out your shoulder. And
could I ask you a question about that?
Straight.
If your arrows are landing to the left, should you swing your left hip back or your right hip back?
If you're right-handed and your arrows are landing to the left, swing your right hip back.
Okay.
Because it's probably your stance and your hips are not perpendicular to the shooting line. They're probably swinging in a little bit. There we go. Okay, does that make sense? If you're left-handed, swing your left.
Yeah, I get mixed up on things like that.
Yep. Yeah, if you think about standing, picture yourself standing in front of the target. and you got your arm up and you're looking down and everything's going to the left. And you can even do this in your room right now. Just do it and stand up. And now just jig that right hip back. It just straightens your hips out, puts them in line with your shoulder, makes your right shoulder swing back. And it gets everything in line. And that's very common. I see this a lot, and I tell people a lot. People struggling, or you're an intermediate archer, but you're just struggling. Why are my arrows always going over here? And it's like, pop that thing, and suddenly check your form. What else are you doing? Are your toes pointed too far forward? And then with kids, check for eye dominance. Are they left eye dominant? Are they right eye dominant? Most kids are the same eye dominant as their dominant hand, but not all of them. And I won't go into it now, but there are some really good, you just watch YouTube or whatever, ways to test eye dominance, like putting your hand out and shutting your right eye and your left eye. And the one that jumps, that is not your dominant eye. You want the one where the picture in your little frame stays put, and that's your dominant eye. Okay, so go ahead.
Comment? The last one there, stick out your chest. Well, little children don't have this problem, but ladies can do a number on their upper body. I had
if they do, they're not holding their bow right.
Well, that may be, but one of my college line mates shot herself in the breast, and we didn't see her for 2 weeks.
Ow. So
Yeah.
at no point ever should that string be in front of your breast if you are a female and have breasts. At no point. The string always goes to the edge of your breast, the very edge. The string is going to taper down, so it's going to go to the edge of your breast, never in front of it. But yeah, the little ones don't have to worry about that. And they don't have to worry about being self-conscious about sticking their chest out. So like some teens, girls do. Okay, so where are we? Arrows are porpoising up and down. They're going up and down. Often that's the knocking point. It's either too high or too low, or it could be release. Check your release. See if that you're not doing something weird with the release. There's plucking and doing all kinds of weird things when people release. Nice, clean release, and double check that knocking point. So the arrows going side to side as they go down the path, that can be release. And I do this sometimes. I got my arrows like that, and I, check my release, and yeah. Or the spine weight is improper for the weight of the bow. And you can read a little bit more about this online. It could be a heavy draw. We're talking kids, so it's usually a heavier spined arrow than the bow can safely send down range or easily send down range. But make sure the arrows are spined to the weight of the bow, So I can't get any distance. What's going on? Okay, one thing, when you want to get some distance, be a teapot, I always say, and tip back. Keep your body straight. Don't raise your arm up. Move your whole body. Your entire body should move. And the kids often, they think they want to hit the far target. They're going to move their arm up. But just having them go over that, tip. And then we just do the teapot things with the younger kids, and they get it. And you, if you say things like that, like table the bow, or put your bow on the table, or be a teapot, you don't have to stop them in the middle of what they're doing. It's just like a word that's going to remind them. Like if you see the kid out there and they're putting their arm, you go, be a teapot. And they get it right away. Oh yeah, be a teapot. And that's helpful. So no power to my arrow. the kids are, I can't hit the target, I can't reach it. It's usually form. And, even those little bows, those little 10-pound bows, they can send an arrow pretty far, but they have to, they can't be all curled up, and they need to be sticking that chest down, putting those shoulders back. And working with little kids, I often have them be verbal. And by verbal, I mean like roar. And this actually helps. I'll say, okay, you're going to put some power to it, right? You're going to stick those shoulders back. Yeah. And let me hear it. They're like, yeah, let me hear it. Rah! And, it's like using that little extra oomph that they need to send that arrow down there. And I don't know what you call that, but it works, working with the little ones especially. Let's see, how are we on time? We're okay on time. So range etiquette, this is something we don't go over enough, in my opinion, but and as marshals and teachers, we have to remember to talk about this. When you approach the line, don't just walk up with your kids and teach kids this. Ask to join the line. May I shoot if there's something going on? May I fill in? And when everybody's done shooting or you're done shooting, take your bow and step back. Take your arrows and step back, including ground quivers. I've had shoots where people are filling in and someone with a ground quiver leaves all their stuff right there, and it's just in the way. I mean, ground quivers you can pick up and move pretty easy. So just be considerate. And again, ask before pulling or picking up anyone's arrows. May I pull your arrows, or may I pick up your arrows, or may I help you? And ask permission before giving pointers to someone. And this goes along with the working with the kids, like you said, Ivar. Not everybody wants help, first of all. Most people don't want to be touched. And not everybody wants help. And ask permission before giving them pointers. And, do you mind if I noticed you do this. Do you mind if I give you advice? And sometimes you think, well, who the hell are you? And sometimes it helps, I've been an archery coach, or I'm an archer marshal, or, I'm an experienced whatever.
Do you need to remind the kids about when they pull their arrows, how they carry them coming back, so they don't stab other people or stab themselves? Or
yeah, it's good to go over all of those body mechanics things with kids, so they're not running. So they're not waving them around in the air, or, not throwing them over their shoulders, or all of those things, because, kids just do all of that spontaneous stuff. But it's important to instill in them the seriousness of archery. And I mean, not like archery is such serious business and it's no fun. It's more like you can kill somebody or you can maim somebody. And instilling that in them, and make sure this is not a joke. This is not goof off time. And you're only going to be allowed to do this if you're taking it seriously, because you can severely hurt someone or you could kill someone. And
Hey, Mistress Lorelei.
Yes.
Hi, it's Johannes. Hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we're coming on 5 minutes.
Okay, that's good. I think I'm just finishing up. I can't believe I zoomed through this. And then, of course, thank your marshals. And if you want, I liked this picture. This is Master Grimm. He's doing the teapot really well. This was at a clout shot. He's got a nice teapot going in there. But more information, archery.atlantia.sca.org. And don't forget to have fun. This kid is in college right now. He's like 6'6", and he's having a blast. So I love this picture. This was for a local magazine thing. I like this picture because nobody had their bow drawn. we were actually facing the rapier fighters. And we freaked them all out like crazy for a second because they thought we had our bows drawn in their direction. And this is for the photographer said, well, can you line up and aim that way? We're like, no. But, we just didn't draw. We put the arrow on the shelf and pretended. But anyway, it was fun. And that's me. And is there anybody with any questions real quick or comments? And I am happy to have feedback.
Getting back to the safety issues, I guess part of it too is reminding kids not to dry fire their bows.
Yes.
And not to shoot straight up in the air.
And that's like the first thing they're going to want to do. And the other thing they're going to want to do is like shoot sideways, like they're like being gangster style or something like that. Yeah. Yeah. All those things. And, it sounds like you're someone who works with kids and has a lot of experience with kids. And absolutely, which is why we like to have parents right there with the kids the entire time, because the marshals can't watch everything. And if you're going to have a kid shoot, you need more than one line marshal, like 2 or 3, in addition to having the parents, Anyway, thank you so much. We can